Let me take this opportunity and bid a very, very good morning to each of you and thank you for your presence. I'm your host Isha Phala and I'm mighty delighted to welcome all of you right here at the Economic Times World Leaders Forum. While our plenary session on the theme of leadership for global prosperity is in progress in the Darbar Hall, right here in the Mumtaz Hall, we will delve later into talking about what is it that we can make to do and achieve prosperity via a series of thought-provoking discussions. And our first discussion is going to be something that will interest each of you. But before I tell you what it really is, let me take this opportunity by thanking our partners for supporting us. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Visa, powered by Raymond, our technology partner, Google, our skill education partner, Symbiosis Skills University, Pune and Indore, our GCC partner, Carillon Global Solutions, our knowledge partner, PwC. It is such a pleasure to have amongst us leaders who are game changers of the Indian industries and across the globe. We're so very glad to have with us Mr. Naveen Jindal, Chairman, Jindal Steel and Power. Such a pleasure to see you and our wonderful leaders among our audience today. As we look forward to our first segment, our first panel discussion, where we will be talking about global skill agenda for India, a way for us to really look into the crystal ball, gaze into the future, and see what is it that we require to build global prosperity, the one thing that perhaps shapes the future of India and makes sure that we can look forward to a skilled workforce in our country that is ready to take on and that helps us get an inch closer to India becoming a superpower. As we talk about this session, we are so very glad to have amongst us esteemed panelists right here. And as we invite them here on the dais, may I also present to you our moderator, who better than him to weave this segment together and to bring to us some amazing thoughts. May I request all of you to please welcome our moderator, Mr. Ashutosh Sinha, Senior Editor, Times Experiences. Always a pleasure to see you, sir. I've learned a lot from him. When I joined television, we know that he is an inspiration. I'd now like to take a moment and present to you our power-packed panelists. Please put your hands together as I welcome Mr. Pankaj Bansal, founder, People Strong. A round of applause as he joins us and takes a seat. May I now welcome Dr. Swati Majumdar, Pro-Chancellor, Symbiosis Skills Universities, somebody who always mentors and guides her students and team forward. Thank you, ma'am, for your presence. May I present to you Shri Atul Kumar Tiwari, Secretary, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of India. What a delight to have you amongst us, sir. And who better than you can delve deep into this very special segment. May I now present to you Mr. Ved Mani Tiwari, Chief Executive Officer, NSDC, and Managing Director, NSDC International. Thank you so very much, sir, for being on the panel. We look forward to your thoughts. May I now welcome Mr. Jayant Rastogi, Global CEO, Magic Bus India Foundation. It's a delight to have you be a part of this very, very important panel discussion right here. For my wonderful audience, I'd like to share with you that we look forward to your thoughts as well. So please make sure that you're interactive enough and join us on the social media as well. Do remember to use our hashtag ETWLF. Sir, all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you indeed. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you so much everyone here sharing the stage with me. Today morning I was listening to Dr. Rubini and the points that he made, it struck a chord because that's reality today. We see a situation where society is probably, I won't use the word disintegrating, but it's kind of falling apart. And the role of technology, it is integrating things. So just one line of an old poetry that I read in school. Oh, east is east and west is west and never the twain shall meet. Rudyard Kipling. But today we need leaders who can help us, the two to meet. So with that, and possibly that could be the skilling agenda. So Mr. Tiwari, as the secretary, how do you see the emerging opportunity for the policymaker to do and for the opportunity around the world for Indian companies, Indian government, Indian talent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a very big question, but I would like to, for the positive time, stick to the essentials. The skilling is becoming integral to any effort that we are doing today, and I have been in this ministry for almost 4 years, and I find that more and more interconnected activities are taking place with different sectors for the skilling. The skilling ministry was made in 2014, skill development and entrepreneurship. Many people forget that it is entrepreneurship as well, so I would like to remind that. And since then, we have all different arrays of skilling depending upon the demand. We have short skills, we have long-term skills, we have apprenticeship, we have Jan Section Sansthan, we have the ITIs, our NSDC, which Vedmani Tiwari will speak more, sure, has also the industry-led CSR and other non-grant skilling as well. So over the years, the skilling ecosystem has developed quite a lot. We have so many job roles as the skilling qualification, as we call it. We have a regulator. We have a very robust assessment system, awarding bodies. And realizing that the skilling is not skilling alone, but it has to emanate from the way the education system is taking place. The National Education Policy has also come in 2020. And we are working very closely with the Education Ministry, so much so that the skilling has become as a part of the education continuum rather than the labor and employment part. Of the recent years, particularly of this budget, you can see there is a lot of emphasis on employment and skilling. And there are numerous examples by which we have customized our skilling to meet the demands of the industry as well as different departments, different beneficiaries, and so much and so forth. We also have done quite a lot for the international skill-based migration as well. I admit that there has to be further tweaking of the framework which we have for the skill-based migration. As it is assailed by the different xenophobic forces as well and migration patterns as well. But there is a very important case for that to also to happen. So in short, I will say that looking into the budget, looking into the foundational work done on National Education Policy and the Skill Ministry, and looking into the way that the government is trying to rope in the corporates to come forward and do the skilling part. We also have a, UPI for skilling, which is Skilling a Digital Hub is there. So I can say that we are all ready and it is time for us to take off, and it's an inflection point when the demand, because of the so many disruptive technologies are also coming. And whatever I was looking into the different panel discussions, and every sector which has been spoken about, there's a lot of things which has happened. Sure. And as it is India's its size and scale, there are a lot of things we have to do and scale it up. But I would say that the skill universities for Swatiji is there. The different apprenticeship-based embedded degree programs are there. Putting the vocational education in school curriculum is there. Schooling labs are there. And creating a large network of the skill providers, assessors, etc. So we have done quite a lot in that, and it's time for us. Policy side, government side, we are very clear. We want to engage with the corporates and the industries and the private sector. At the same time, we have done a lot of ramping up within the government.
Sure.
So the interdisciplinary and working together, having a common platform, having a common cost norms, having the job roles, having a proper pedagogy and certification, and everything is already. Just we need to little bit of push from
ready
the
for
private
takeoff.
side. And as I had said last thing, I would say that there is also the skilling. If it has to meet the need, it also has to be demand based. It is here that the corporates and industries and outside the government actors have to come forward and engage with us. And our policy, our prescriptions, our schemes are very clear. Thank you.
So, Mr. Vedmani Tiwari, while we were just speaking a little while ago, Secretary Tiwari mentioned that you are like the private sector. How are you driving the agenda? I think that should be on. That should be on. Yeah. So how are you helping drive the agenda so that that volume that we are talking about of people who need to be skilled can be met maybe within a finite time period?
So thank you so much. First of all, let me contextualize this, that our Honorable Prime Minister, when he started his Skill India mission, he had this vision that India has the potential to become skill capital of the world. We are seeing that now in front of our eyes. Just one figure, that while we all talk that India will be a Viksit Bharat in 2047 because of our sheer power of our own growth, but world will add 1 billion people in workforce in next 25 years. And every fourth person will be an Indian because of our median age today is 28. You see Japan is 49, Germany is 48. So it's not only about the gross value added in Indian economy. In the global economy, 1/4 of the global, every fourth dollar that will be added to the world's economy will be an Indian, by an Indian. And that's where the focus has to be that we have to skill not for the jobs that are available next door, but we also have opportunity to create a workforce which can fulfill the skilling demand of the world. And the opportunity, the COVID was an adversity, but it also offered an opportunity that you can remotely work. The global capability centers that we are seeing in India, 45% of all the global capability centers are now in India. That means India can actually do a services export to all around the world. That's one big opportunity that we have, that not everybody needs to migrate to participate in global workforce. That's one area that global capability centers are just the beginning, and similar shared services centers and innovation centers can be built for across the world. So that's one opportunity area. The second opportunity area is the world is facing a care crisis. Just like Y2K crisis the world faced, and India went and solved that problem. The world is facing a care crisis, and the care economy that India can build can be a true strategic edge that we can have. So that means that a lot of people who will be required to take care of the problem, social, personal, healthcare problem of the world, India can be up there. So that means that another opportunity is that people who can migrate there.
Sure.
And the third opportunity that I see is that because of the climate change, the non-tariff barriers built around the climate issues are being built all over the world. If we upskill our people early enough, we will have the opportunity to have a greater share of the global value add. With these things in mind, we, under the Ministry of Skill Development's leadership, we set up NSDC International, which is working on all these dimensions. But we also realized that the scale of the opportunity, and I don't say scale of problem, I say the scale of opportunity is so humongous that only digital can solve for it. And just for your information, the Skill India Digital Hub, which the Secretary Sir talked about, was built in just 1.5 years' time and was launched on 13th September last year. Within 1 year, now it has been accepted as one of the members in the India Stack Global. And it is attracting global attraction now. So we built that digital platform to reach out to everyone. That platform is also helping us to integrate edutechs. We are working a lot with edutechs, which were until now operating in some non-regulated area. The Skill India Digital Hub is providing an opportunity to integrate edtech's potential into our education system, the NEP 2020 that we are talking about. And so the digital is a large agenda. And we also realized that financing, we need humongous amount of financing to drive this agenda. However hard government may try, it may never have the resources enough to drive this agenda. So we are working on a lot of financial innovations, the skill impact bond, skill venture fund that we are going to launch. And recently the government of India has launched a very unique skill loan scheme, where there is a government is providing guarantee for somebody to take a skill loan up to 7.5 lakh rupees. And as the Secretary was talking about, the Ministry of Skill Development is also talking about entrepreneurship, because not everyone has to do a wage job. So the skill loan also has a component that you can actually include the equipment also into this, up to 7.5 lakh.
Okay, hold your thoughts, sir, because there is so much to chew on. And Mr. Rastogi, tell us, how does the private sector, how does institution like yours be part of it and keep up with so much things that are happening?
Yeah, so I think, the Secretary actually spoke about, a lot of policy, a lot of stuff. And I think, Vedmaniji also spoke about, what the measures which have been taken. I think, there's one thing which is really commendable is the urgency and the intent of the government in driving this, Also, सबसे पहली चीज़ है identification. So I think the Prime Minister identifying that, this was an opportunity, I think that's phenomenal. So I would just want to kind of, just also talk about, what is the equation, the job equation. See, we talk about the demographics dividend. Now, this demographic dividend, to be really a demographic dividend, we need to first look at the job equation. See, we need to be producing 7.65 or 8 million jobs every year. Last year was the best year, where we did around 4.5 million. So there is a gap of 3.5 million every year, which is there. The second thing is that, we are talking about, see, we know the China story, right? We know that China rode the manufacturing wave, it got a lot of people skilled, and then amazing growth story, 3 decades of growth, etc. And now, anyway, it's kind of going down. So we cannot emulate any of those stories, and I think the government is smart and wise enough to understand that. First is we talk about, AI. Obviously, we know that AI is disruptive. It changes the way we work. Mm-hmm. So what is going to happen is that the number of jobs that will be created would be far lower than before. So I think we need to be cognizant about it. So I think the problem is, one is domestic job creation. The second is we have a huge workforce. So what should we be doing? And that is where this whole, I think, global skilling hub is a fantastic idea. I think it makes sense. I think we have the playbook because NASSCOM did that. We become the Correct. IT and software hub of the world. So NASSCOM's already done that. We have the playbook. And if we can be intelligent in terms of Make of India, Skill India, I think a lot of other initiatives which are there, I think we should be on a really good footing. Also, other silver linings are, we have a young workforce, cost arbitrage. I think, a lot of technical skills which are available within the country. So I'm very positive and...
Very interesting. So, Dr. Majumdar, at the heart of it is the education, because that's the raw material that will convert the raw material to the skilled workforce. So I'm talking of vocational as well as not just the traditional education, even the vocational part of it. How do we skill up and how do we show the urgency that everyone seems to be talking about?
So it was wonderful to hear all of them. I think two important things that we need to address before we just talk about the scalability is still the pertinent problem of social acceptability. And coming from a skill university background, if you want scalability, you will require to create mechanisms, institutionalize the process, where the skilled workforce also gets acceptability and appreciation in the culture. And in the Indian culture, most of the times students are looking for degrees, be it at undergraduate level or postgraduate level, without thinking whether that would lead to employability or not. And one of the reasons that we established the skill universities was not just to address the number problem, in terms of scalability, but also to give a certain sense of acceptance and respectability to the skills that are required. And I'm glad that everybody here mentioned about the NEP or mentioned about the various mechanisms that the government is creating to bring in that angle. And the second point, which I definitely feel we need to work on, is the hub and spoke model. That will certainly bring in the scalability. The government is already planning for it very actively. But if we want to build the numbers, then we need to have some kind of an institutionalized mechanism, like a skill university where that becomes the hub and then there are spokes. This is a model, by the way, that has been very successfully implemented in Korea, where more than 98% of their workforce is vocationally trained and skilled. But may I add to that, that those people are still not wanting to take the so-called lower-end jobs and are still looking at the blue-collar jobs. So we must try to have a good mix of both of these, that is getting the respectability, plus making it scalable through various mechanisms, like a hub and spoke model or other models, so that we, at least in the Indian culture, we can build numbers very quickly.
Okay, so that with Mr. Bansal, the ramping up, again the partnership part, What could be some of those strategies where India really looks to ramp up, and well as, that movement of labor becomes, labor, I'm using a traditionally used word, workforce is more acceptable these days? When that becomes the norm possibly in some years from now?
No, thank you, Ashutosh and Soumya, for getting us together. Good to see Naveen ji in audience, so sincerely looking at us setting up a world-class center. So my complaint come suggestion is as follows, that when we say 52% of India is employable by India Skills Report, right? It was our report, we sold the company Reeboks to ETS, which owns TOEFL and GRE, but I'm proud that every TOEFL and GRE test has an Indian tech in it. But that 52% number moved from 34, right, 10 years ago. So we all forget that we moved from 34 to 52. So that's one part. The contrary to that is what you're asking, is corporations, 3 out of 4 corporations still saying, I don't have employable talent, correct? Now, let's move forward. When I look at India Skills Report, it's the same states, Haryana, it's the UP, it's the Andhra, Telangana, which are highly employable states. But there are states who have never been there on that chart, right? We know the data, we know everything. Now the responsibility, we can continue to say it's government. Atul Tiwari ji spoke so much. But I think government can only do that much. This country can only solve the skilling problem if we stop thinking about skill and think about jobs. And when we think of jobs, if there are HR professionals in the audience, I can bet you no one is talking about degrees anymore. Every job is about skill. There is something called skill cloud. Every corporation is fixing up. I'm the founder of People's Wrong. I know every tech that is being sold, people are asking for skill cloud, not job cloud, not competency cloud. And if you move and take it further extent, I don't know if there are investors in the audience. My first fund, Carrot Capital, had 125 crore. We made 2 investments out of that in jobs. I don't see funds investing in jobs. Whenever investment comes, Ashutosh, why do we only point fingers to Mr. Tiwari and Vedmani Tiwari? Okay, they are doing what they are doing, we can tell Mr. Naveen, but it is our responsibility as well. Tell me the name of the fund where you heard they invested in a job company. And I'll tell you, there are returns we don't trust. Unstop, the company we invested, today has 1.2 crore people on the platform. Largest company in early career space. Every month they are adding 50 lakh kids, 50 lakh. Tell me which platform is adding 50 lakh freshers, right? We invested along with Coursera. That 20 crore capital has transformed. And my last point, I can give you multiple examples. Even in Unstop, 1,000 jobs were published by Flipkart. You know how many applicants came? 5 lakh. I will talk about skilling later. First, give access to every kid anywhere in the country to come and apply for that job. And last point, if I wear a government hat, I'm on the board of Karmyogi Bharat, which is Prime Minister's initiative. Government has 2.8 crore people. 42 lakh people have come onto the platform. Prime Minister's agenda was not skilling. When we asked the question, why Prime Minister is looking at a HR kind of initiative in government, right? You've never heard. The single line answer, Ashutosh, was if we have to improve citizen services, the only way we can do is by enabling my whole civil servant society. So I can go on, but I hope I could put across the message that it's private sector and all of us that we need to make investments.
So Mr. Atul Tiwari, how does the ministry work with the education ministry to reform some of this? Can we have more skill-based, while the NEP 20, that does lay emphasis on that? How does that urgency translate into action on the ground?
As has been pointed out by Swati ji, that we have a colonial mindset of obsession with the degrees. And bringing the skilling and vocational education into education system is the most important part of the NEP. And it happens in 2 ways. One is how do we bring education into skilling, and how bring skilling into education, if they are considered 2 entities. And then, of course, as the skilled persons get more remuneration, so the aspirational value would also increase. So when we bring the skilling into education, that happens through the NCF, that is the new curriculum framework. And there a lot of work has happened in this regard, that from class 6 to 8, children should be exposed to the world of the work, 9 and 10, 11 and 12. And higher education also. There, as I said, there are a lot of higher education institutions, AICT, UGC, they are doing and bringing the on-the-job, real-time required skills as part of their degree programs. So this will take a lot of time, but the work has already started, and I can quote many examples where things have happened. Other part is bringing education into skilling, and that has happened through the national credit framework. So the credit framework equalizes, gives equivalence to the skilling, as well as academic learning, as well as the expertise one gets over the period of time. And there is a three-dimensional scales in which they have been brought together. We have done quite a lot along with the Education Ministry. Earlier, Mr. Pradhan used to be our minister. Now also our minister, Sri Jayant Rastogi, is also MOS in education. And there are a lot of things which have happened with the UGC, ICT, and NCVT. How the guidelines are there that how they can make more courses. 50% of the courses can be skill-based in the higher education institutions. So I would say that we have started moving, and there is a general acceptance right from the HR level, as Mr. Bansal was saying, as to the education level, and how do we bring more and more work-related real-life skills to our students in the education institutions. And higher education, you get every year 3.5 crores of people coming out of the higher education. Similar, there's a large number for the secondary school and higher secondary schools. So if we bridge this gap, which is how do we give these skillings, suppose a person has come from the ITI, and whether that is also allowed them to go for the higher education. So the multiple entry, multiple exit kind of thing can happen. And this is perfectly in line with the way the whole work system is changing, where there has to be emphasis on continuous skills, and you work, and then you come out, get skilled, and then work and educate. And this is the cycle which will keep on going. So we have quite a robust framework is there, and a lot of things have happened. And I would say in conclusion that we are very much working very closely with the education. And there is a upper identity is also being mentioned, so that it carries the whole academic and skill history of an individual right from the school and onwards. Academic bank of credits are there. So whatever the digital advantages which we have, everything is in place, and things are being put into their places. And I'm sure that in the coming years we'll see a massive change in the way we look at education and skills and competencies. And we also find that there is a general awareness that the skilling is the key to getting a better livelihood rather than mere degrees, and the students also recognize.
Sure. Dr. Majumdar, so that partnership that is so important for industry to build with government, with the policymaker's vision, as well as the opportunity that students will ultimately get when they walk into the job market. How is that panning out? How do we raise that bar so that it can be internationally accepted maybe tomorrow?
So I think just taking that discussion forward, certainly I think the industry sits at the ethos of the heart of skilling. And what I have at least learned in Symbiosis when we set up these two skill universities, that unless there is a drive or an impetus from the industry, the skill-based initiatives will probably not succeed. So what we've done in Symbiosis, and it's just an experiment which I am seeing some baby steps of success, is basically to not start skilling programs on our own. And that is one mistake that most conventional colleges and universities make, where professors like us sit in a cabin and think of a course which is doing well in some other university, so you just want to cut, copy, paste and start it in your own. Skilling is very, very localized and contextualized. So I have two skill universities, one in Indore and one in Pune. Now Pune, as all of you know, has a big auto hub. It used to be known as the Detroit of India. So while Indore, as all of you know, is a textile hub. So obviously what works in Pune may not work in Indore and vice versa. So contextualizing, localizing are very important in terms of the industry that you mentioned, Mr. Ashutosh. And what we are doing in Symbiosis is we never conceive programs on our own. We actually work with the industry to understand their skilling gaps. We find out what kind of job roles are there in demand over the next, say, 1 or 2 years. And also with the government, Tiwari sir, the local state governments, to understand who are the industries who are going to set up companies in the region. And I'm sure you'll understand, Ashutosh, that whenever a company is trying to set up a factory in any place, one of the big concerns is, am I going to get skilled workforce? So if we start, the academia starts working with the industry from that inception point itself, then by the time the company sets up or by the time the job roles actually get into HR, then of course you can create that kind of a skilled workforce. So it's important to understand what are the industry demands, what are the sectors where the job roles are coming up. And it's very important for teachers like us to not think in isolation but actually curate programs and courses to meet that need.
Mr. Rastogi, you'd like to come in because the industry also has its expectation on what should be the outcome, what should be the finished product that we are getting. Today, all big companies, and if we speak only tech, they spend about 3 months or so, each of them now, to train to the finished product that comes to them.
So I think Swati ji covered this, and I think the Secretary also covered this. Actually, I just want to go back to one very important point, I think, which the Secretary covered. See, the new education policy. And I'm very passionate about it, so I really wanted to speak about it. Sure. So if you look at new education policy, is really revolutionary. See, academia, everybody, nobody has said anything. I think this is revolutionary in the sense it is looking at, what is the demand side and actually enabling the supply to do that. The new education policy is not talking about only academics, it's talking about holistic progress. And that is where I think, it's really fantastic. So if you look at it, what are the problems with the country, right? First is we are not producing enough employable people. 50% people are only employable, right? The second big problem which is there with the country is that, see, the government has done a really good job in terms of primary education. Almost 99-100% enrollment is already there. The problem is shifted to the adolescent. See, you cannot create skilling at the last mile. The work has to happen much earlier. And that is where the new education policy comes in. It's talking about the credit points which the Secretary spoke about. So this lovely, the national curriculum framework. So what the government is doing is it's not only actually rolling out something which is really required, it's also making frameworks, content, curriculum at the central level. It's also working with state governments. And this is, I'm telling you, this is going to be a game changer. I don't think anybody has done this kind of a holistic work. The new education policy is just brilliant. And, I think, the biggest thing is that, I think the discourse needs to move to the adolescent. That is where the maximum dropout for girls happens. Yeah. Almost 40% girls drop out from senior primary to higher secondary. And then they're off the stream, Yeah. Now, what happens is that you have to start working at that precise age. Now, and I think the new education policy is talking about, vocational skills, STEM, life skills. See, if I was to ask you, and the disruptive changes that AI is doing, see, our life cycles, the change is getting more disruptive. Internet, kind of impacted how we live, how we work. Similarly, cars had an impact. Now with AI, it's going to be more disruptive. So the only thing that you need is to be a continuous learner and to be relevant. And if I was to ask this audience that, if you have a 5-year-old girl today, what skills do we provide to her so that by 2040 she's employable? Would it be AI skills?
Audience?
Would it be language skills? No. I think the skills.
If I may.
So we'll try and come to you towards the end, please.
So the only skills that we can provide to her is to stay relevant. And to stay relevant, you have to provide her with life skills to fight life's challenges. And I think that's really important. The new education policy really, really emphasizes on that. So I think this is really brilliant work from from the government. It's
So Mr. Vedmani Tiwari, how does the technology intervention, while you mentioned some of these points, and to Mr. Rastogi's point, how does that turn to be a game changer? How can that really raise the bar for us?
So before going, technology is my favorite subject, but before going there, I just want to pick up what you asked Mr. Jain. Role of private sector into skilling. See, I have worked in government and private sector both. Markets are the best determination of allocation of resources. Somehow we have not been able to send this signal that skilling leads to productivity gains. The moment private sector identifies that skilling leads to productivity gains, because ultimately a private sector is always trying to be relevant in terms of being competitive in the industry. So somewhere our all focus has until now have been that how do we make our people employable, and just getting them first job. That's not going to be enough. The private sector participation can, actually the government should focus on making people employable, but then work with private sector And to private sector also have large L&D budgets, but they somehow stop at the boundary of the payroll of the large companies, and they don't move. And in India, we have 90% workforce which works in informal sector. Our problems lie in informal sector, in the value chain of the private sector, and that is needs to be recognized. And this is the public-private partnership that has to come into picture, because the private sector will think that if I upskill a worker and the worker will leave left next day, what will happen to my investment? And that is where we have to consider that skilling is a public good, and somewhere the government should come. Now coming to technology, that how technology can come into picture. If the Ubers and Zomatos can aggregate small shops and can create a large virtual national scale restaurant, we need to find technology, we need to deploy technology to make our MSMEs and our rural economy, where 45% of our workforce, our people work, aggregate them digitally. And NSDC is working with now ONDC. How do we make Skill India Digital work closely with ONDC? So ONDC on the output side, Skill India Digital sitting in between, the eShram, which is a government database for unskilled workers, the EPFO, the National Career Services, we are building a digital ecosystem. This digital ecosystem will leverage the national education policy because academic credit based incentive. So private sector, when people are getting upskilled in those jobs, they can also earn academic credit, and that's the framework that we have to work upon, that people are earning lifelong academic credits which will make their lives better, and when they earn those credits, they make their companies more competitive in the marketplace. So that is the opportunity that skill agenda does not have to be only getting people
within four
jobs.
walls.
It has to be continuous upskilling, and I have studied the productivity data for all sectors. We have a lot of catch up to do with the world. And one last point that I would say, one urgency that can be pushed to private sector. Recently we talked that private sector is talking a lot about that people are leaving and going abroad. Now imagine that, and we work in that area, a nurse who we train and goes and works in Germany earns 3,500 euros a month. Whereas if the same nurse is working in the best of the hospitals here, earn 15,000 rupees a month. This, the more and more the skill capital of the world, the more and more people find productive opportunities outside, they will force private sector to start looking at creating decent jobs and making their people more productive.
Skill capital, you think Mr. Bansal needs some capital as well?
So I told you about capital. My worry is that, okay, आप skill की बात करें, outcomes की बात करें. इंडिया का number 1 institute कौन है? इस साल IIMs नहीं है. It is Masters Union. 4th batch. Masters Union. Across this 4th batch, highest salary, 35 lakh average, highest fee. How did it come about? Just because the question you're asking, no standard content of an MBA, no AI. So I'm not being negative about government, but they said we will go our way because the industry is valuing it. Bain Capital and McKinsey going and hiring. Secondly, who's the, अगर आप ये कहोगे cream है, let's take a mass example. Sunstone, India के top 5 MBAs में Sunstone. They own 0 buildings, right? They are little lagging this thing. So this is Sunstone. Okay, disclaimer, I'm on the board of both. But because I'm investing, I'm on the board, I'm saying, so I'm trying to tell you that outcomes can be measured not by technology, but truly understanding what is the outcome. And that is where the problem is coming. Or skilling, जहाँ तक हमारी बात है, we have looked at, we have heard. I think skilling game will only change when we understand the aspirational and non-aspirational jobs. India में 10% jobs aspirational, that's it. And 70% talent is chasing those 10% jobs. We have to spin that off. We have to make sure what NSDC is doing can be popularized, publicized, connect the companies, skilling system, जो उन्होंने value chain कहा. India की सबसे बड़ी job churning industry supply chain, mobility. वहाँ पर हमारा कोई focus नहीं है. Those industries are not so-called happening, or we use a word sexy companies. They are not. They are which are we still हम brahminical society में फंसे हुए हैं कि वही engineer हमारा. We have to change, and that responsibility lies on this sector. When I started investing in supply chain, वहाँ पर 3x का multiple मिलता revenue का. आपकी बाकी industries में 8x. मेरी दूसरी company PeopleStrong में 10x. but this is not, this balance has to change. I think we've made the beginning. And last point, आपने national credit framework की बात की, I can assure you in 2 years, and so happy to hear from the Magic Bus team that अभी हम कहते हैं ना graduate चाहिए, you will see it will say 5.0. अब score की बात होगी. Right? Doesn't matter whether you're a graduate or not. If you flunked in the CA final, still you did a lot. आप IAS clear नहीं कर पाए, but उसको भी credit मिल रहा. I'm just amazed how it's been thought through. So I think it's the numbers which is going to come into advertisement. That's the scale world that I'm waiting. वो कहते हैं ना वो सुबह कभी तो आएगी. So I think it's coming.
Mr. Rastogi, would you like to add to that? Because the numbers, sheer numbers that you mentioned, that you are helping skill and to a segment that tomorrow could really bring the volumes to the market.
Thank you for that question, actually. See, we work with adolescents because that's the age which I think, that's the age where we need to get in, because I told you primary, I think 99-100% enrollment है. तो इस एज में हम करीब 30 लाख बच्चों के साथ अभी काम करते हैं. और next year it will be 80 lakhs. We are actually getting into all states. We are working in different school systems, tribal या सारे school systems. और so again, life skills is our core. We've been one of the pioneers. So we really ensure that we are working with the NCERT in terms of the assessment, the national curriculum framework जो Secretary साहब ने बोला था, working with state governments, and there is a very high level of intent in the government to kind of drive these changes. दूसरा on the and we work only with people from the marginalized backgrounds. दूसरी चीज जो हम कर रहे हैं, which is about livelihood. So on livelihood we have this year around 250,000 young people, with 60% being girls, and getting girls into jobs is far more difficult. And we place almost 85-90% of them. We work with NSDC also on some of the programs very closely. But I think the most important thing is that if we have to be a global hub for skilling, we need female workforce participation to go up. Now, female workforce participation in the country is approximately 30-35%. International average is 47%, and we need to get it to 60%. So I think those are the things that we have to be inclusive. We have to get everybody to be part of this growth, and that is where I think we can become a global economy.
A short answer, Dr. Majumdar. 2 or 3 things that you tweak in the education system to get ready for that 60% target that Mr. Rastogi seems to be talking about. And that could be a game changer, because if more women join the workforce, that could be a game changer for the entire length and breadth of the country.
So we have been running specialized programs with our industry partners under the CSR initiatives only for women and girls. Most of these are in the engineering and manufacturing sectors. So green jobs like green mobility. We recently trained 1,100 semi-literate women with the help of our partners. We have specialized programs for girls in manufacturing excellence or industrial automation or smart manufacturing. I do, however, would like to mention that when we are looking at increasing the percentage of women in workforce, and I already see less women in this room, I think one of the prime considerations for all of you should be safety of women in workforce. And all the things that we are hearing and listening, I think that should be the most important criteria before we even start shouting out that we want to increase the percentage of women in workforce. Okay. So let's look forward to some deliberations on that.
So last word, Secretary Tiwari, how do we, from your perch, from your lens, how do we see the future, maybe 5 to 7 years, maybe 2030 or something around that time? Crystal ball glazing, I know, is not easy.
Without going to the future, we'll say that what is that we have done today which is going to sustain. And before that, I would like to thank Pankajji and Jayantji for explaining it in such a powerful terms, the skilling which is getting into the center place. My reading is that if you have to, the ultimate aim is the Viksit Bharat 2047 as envisioned by Honorable Prime Minister. And for that, we need to increase our productivity, we need to increase our efficiency, and that will happen only if we get more and more employed people. So in that sense, there's some groundwork which has been done which will start delivering results. One is the NEP. Second is the digital infrastructure, which very eloquently mentioned by Vedji. I would say that he said about NCS, e-Shram, said ONDC, and I also say APAR and so that we get a full skill profile of the individuals. To the extent, if it happens, then as Pankaj was saying, that the credit would become a criteria for the employment. Second thing is that the state and the government and the industry is working together. And as we are moving ahead, we'll find that more and more emphasis and premium is being paid on the skilling, which will again will lead to the centuries-old perception, obsession with degree will not change in one day. But if you are creating conditions that we are giving the skills as equivalent to the academic thing and degree and skills coming together. Second, we have the digital skills which are available and your profile is also there. And there is also a need, the way the capex is happening in the government and the private sector, they require some more world-class companies coming in India for that matter, as envisioned by Honorable Prime Minister. So all these things will put together. So I see that in future, there will be, the skill will become inalienable part of every sector, and we'll get more and more skilled workforce suitable to our employment. And as the employment also increases over a period of time, there's also has to be there, take into account the livelihood part also, because all the jobs will not come from the sectors. And as the informal sector is also getting more and more formalized, and with these, foundational things which are there in terms of technology and education and all that, I think we will be in better place than today.
Okay, on that optimistic note, thank you so much everyone for being a part of this. I'll just mention one line before I come to you, sir. So since we started with East is East and West is West and never the twain shall meet, it'll be the time when the same poem mentioned, there'll be no birth, no breed, nobody will care for them. When two men are face to face, though they come from opposite ends of the earth. So that's the line from Kipling that stayed with me. Sir, please.
Is there a mic?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank Economic Times for taking up such an important issue. I did not have any plans to come here this morning. I was planning to come in the evening for the Prime Minister's talk. But I just saw this program and I changed everything else and I came here. And it's really good to hear all these experts talking on this very important subject. So this subject about skilling, training is a very complex subject. Complex in a very interesting way. Complex not in the complicated way. Okay, it's a very complex subject, very interesting subject, and I think which is getting attention, all the attention from the government led by the Prime Minister and everyone in the society also. But there is a lot of gap of knowledge also in this. I have seen so many ITIs all over the country. Every time I go see, I have never seen, there are many lathe machines, there are many machines. I have never seen any one of them working at that time. They're all standing. Okay, and we all the time want to open new ITIs, but the ones which are there, why can't they work in double shift? You know, they could be working double shift, they could be working 3 shift. They should all be centers for manufacturing. Why? Because otherwise, you know, on a lathe machine, it's very expensive. You put some part to machine, and after that, you don't have enough parts to practice on. Suppose they were producing for the industry, they are very modern machines, because everywhere the government, every state government has hundreds of ITIs. But I have not seen anyone really functioning really well. So there's a lot of effort from the side of the government, and there's also a lot of knowledge gap. जो कहते हैं सबसे बड़ा अभिशाप अज्ञानता है. तो इसके अंदर बहुत सी अज्ञानता भी है, जिसके अंदर हम सब मिल करके, but there are a lot of people like all of you sitting here who are very knowledgeable about this. And there are many people, many corporates. So I being a corporate and a politician, so I promise in my constituency that I'm not going to make India's best skill training centers. I'm going to make the world's best skilling centers. So I want to do that, and I come here to learn from all of you. And you know, I know Symbiosis is doing a great job. There are many centers in Bhubaneswar, you know, C.V. Raman, then the World Skill Center, which Odisha government is running, then Centurion University. These are the ones I've seen, some of them. There's one in Haryana, which Government of India is running, the Vishwakarma Skills University. So there's a lot of good work that's going on. But again, you have a lot of knowledge. So I would love to learn from you, scale it up, take it up, any of the issues that you have. Okay, I'm sure Mr. Tiwari is very open. I will take up any issue in the parliament with the government. And if we all together work on this, I'm sure we can make it happen and really make a difference. Because this is something which can really change the country. And if I would say to what you had said, that nurses are getting 3,500 euros. So we have lots of, we should train many, many more. And automatically, when nurses get less money here, people will start paying them more money, because the good hospitals here, they charge a lot. They can afford to pay them more. So everything is a question of demand and supply. And talking about the industry, there's a huge shortage of skilled people. We have so many, but we have to learn from the aviation industry. Aviation industry, every pilot is trained, they are tested, they are certified, they have their recurrent trainings. Some amount of that happens in driving also, whether you're driving a bus or a truck or a car, some amount. But in our industry, nothing like that happens, and they are operating much bigger machines, much more, thousands of crores of machines people are operating without having proper skills. So there's a huge amount of skill deficit, but which every industry needs to work on, everybody in the society needs to work on, government needs to work on, and education, combining, in this national education policy, from the childhood, giving them skills, etc. So I think there's a lot of knowledge. We need to have it in a way that if somebody wants to do it, I want to do it, I could spend 100 crores every year on this. But I do not know. I do not know exactly how to proceed, how to go forward. I met, Mr. Tiwari also. He is also trying to help us, trying to guide us into this. So, but I'm sure there is enough knowledge. And I'm going to speak and I'm going to ask Pankaj, right? Pankaj to be on our board also. So if he is on our board, I'm sure it will be a lot of inputs from you. And so I'm really glad I came here. And I would like to thank all of you for your knowledge, for your passion and your commitment to this cause. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Jindal, for sharing that thought. And once again, let's hear it up for our panelists for the very valuable insights that each of you all shared when we talk about taking our skill agenda forward, especially on a global platform. Some absolutely brilliant thoughts, and I think each of us have had many key takeaways from all those thoughts that you all shared. May I request you all to please join us for a group picture as we create a memory out of this very special segment. Let's also hear it up for Mr. Ashutosh Sinha for weaving together this segment and for bringing to us such balanced thoughts. I think no one could have done it better than you, sir. So let's hear it up once again as we present to you the right strategies, the investment that India is well positioned to lead on the world stage right here. We spoke about how we should increase the percentage of women in the workforce, but keeping in mind safety first. Talk about that so that we not only increase the women count in this very room, but otherwise as well.